Hello everyone. So moving on to the next session or topic in this chapter, that is electrovalent bond or ionic bond. So hope you are through with the formal charges. You know how to calculate the formal charges of a molecule if you are given. Then we have seen the limitations of octet theory. Expanded, then odd electron molecule, then deficiency in the octet. So all we have considered. And now this is a very familiar topic to you, that is a simple topic, that is electrovalent bond. So you know how an ionic bond is formed. From the small classes you have seen an ionic bond or an electrovalent bond is formed by the transfer of electrons from one atom to another atom, isn't it? So that is how an electrostatic, there is a strong electrostatic force of attraction between the atoms. So that bond is called as electrostatic bond, or you call it as ionic bond. So now we will talk something more about the ionic bond, or what favors ionic bond, etc. The values. What are the values which favors the ionic bond, and which element will favors the ionic bond, etc. We will see today in this session. Now, the formation of electrovalent bond depends mainly on two things. One is the easiness which a cation is formed, as well as an easiness which an anion is formed from its neutral atom. Got it? So I can say, for example, we will take a simple example as sodium chloride. Okay, you can take a simple example as sodium chloride. You know it is an ionic compound. Now, in the case of sodium chloride, the formation of an electrovalent bond depends mainly on the easiness by which sodium forms Na plus, and also the easiness by which Cl forms Cl minus, isn't it? So we know that Na converts to Na plus and Cl converts to Cl minus. Okay, so how the easier it is getting into an anion or a cation, the easier the ionic compound is formed, or the electrovalent bond is formed. That is the first thing. Now the second thing is, once these ions are formed, they are arranged in a definite geometry. Alright, they have got a definite crystalline structure, or you call it as a lattice. We will study about that. Okay, so the arrangement of these positive ions and negative ions in a three-dimensional structure, which is called as a crystal lattice. So the formation of an ionic bond will depend mainly on these two factors. One is the easiness by which they form a cation and an anion. Second is, after the formation of these ions, they form a particular 3D arrangement by which the molecule will get a definite geometry, isn't it? You always say that ionic compounds will have a definite geometry. That is the reason why. Because the plus and minus ion, they will have attractive force as well as repulsive force, and one more energy we will study. Okay, so all these dependency is there for the electrovalent bond. Now, if we come by step, for example, there are two steps in the case of the formation of an ionic bond. One is the sodium is converted to Na plus, leaving one electron, isn't it? So what is this energy? That energy is called as IP, isn't it? Or ionization potential. The energy required to remove an electron from a loosely bounded electron from a gaseous neutral atom. Remember it? So IP is required, and you know ionization potential has always a positive value. That means that delta H, we will go through the delta H thermodynamics, it will be positive. That means always endothermic in nature. Okay. Now, what is the second step? Second step is according to the anion. Now, what happens to the chlorine? Chlorine will accept this electron, isn't it? It will accept this electron. Cl plus an electron will give you Cl minus. Now, what is that energy required for that? That is electron gain enthalpy, isn't it? So, it is called as delta H of electron enthalpy. And what is the nature of this electron gain enthalpy? The electron gain enthalpy may be positive or negative, which means it can be endothermic as well as it can be exothermic. In normal cases, it will be exothermic, but it can also have positive values also. Okay. So, and after these two processes, what happens? The Na plus and Cl minus will combine together to form what? A crystal lattice and an ionic and electrostatic force of repulsion between them. So, it will attract each other and form an ionic bond, and that bond is, a bond is formed, and that is called as an electrovalent bond or an ionic bond. So, is it clear? So, you know how the formation of an ionic bond happens. Okay. Now, we will say that, now an electron affinity also you know. Then we can say that according to this criteria, you can say an element which has got a lowest IP. Remember, an element or an atom having a lowest IP is favorable, and also an element having a high value of negative electron gain enthalpy favors an electrostatic bond or an ionic bond. So what do you mean by that? Simple. IP is low means what? IP low means it is very easy to remove an electron. Then only the IP is easy. And you know that from the periodic table top to bottom, atomic size increases, therefore IP decreases. So in this case, in the first group we can say which is having a lower IP, cesium is having a lower IP. Okay. At the same time, what about the electron gain enthalpy value? The electron gain enthalpy value must be highly negative, which means the tendency of that element will be very, very high to accept an electron. That is the meaning of a high negative electron gain enthalpy value. So, as we go from left to right in a PT, isn't it? We know that fluorine, isn't it? Fluorine is having the most highest electron gain enthalpy. Exceptions we will go like that. But as a general rule, we will say that fluorine has got a high value of negative electron gain enthalpy. Clear? Now, if that is the scenario, then we can say that which is the ionic compound or which is the strong electrovalent bond formed in this periodic table. All through the periodic table, if you see the ionization potential is having a very low is cesium, group 1, the lowest. And then the high negative electron gain enthalpy value will be fluorine. Then what is the compound then? Cesium fluoride is the ionic compound. So purely ionic compound is formed. Not purely, but still we can say, even though it is not a 100% ionic bond, definitely it will be having a 99% ionic character. So that is why it is easily formed in the strongest bond formed between an cesium and fluorine. Clear? Now, if you see, what about cesium? We say it is a metal, isn't it? Metal. What about fluorine? We say it is a non-metal. So we can again differentiate, or we can again say that an electrovalent bond is mainly or generally formed between a metal as well as a non-metal. Or I can say in other words like, metals are normally forms the cations and non-metals are normally form the anion. Isn't it? You know that. That is why Na metal, Cl minus, NaCl. Or K plus and Cl minus. K is a metal, Cl is a non-metal, KCl. Or NaI, sodium is a metal, iodine is a non-metal, sodium iodide. Cesium is a metal, fluoride is a non-metal, so cesium fluoride. So normally, or in general case, an ionic bond is formed between a metal which forms an cation and a non-metal which forms an anion. But if you say an exception for this, the cation NH4 plus, what is that? NH4 plus is called as ammonium ion. You will see in the practicals. Okay. In the test for cations and anions, normally they will give you ammonium ions. Now in the case of an ammonium ion, we generally say that cations are metals. But See, these two, it's a polyatomic. The nitrogen is a nonmetal as well as hydrogen is a nonmetal. So, these two nonmetals are formed by a cation. So, this is just a small exception, and you know, so many compounds, ionic compounds are formed by this compound like ammonium chloride. Okay, ammonium chloride, ammonium sulfate, ammonium carbonate. Okay, so the ammonium is an exception in which the cation is not a metal. Now, having said this, now what happens? Now you have a positive ion and a negative ion, and what will happen? We said that this positive and ion will combine through what? Through Coulombic charges or electrostatic charges of attraction. Then they will form a three-dimensional crystal lattice. We will study more about lattice in 12th standard, first chapter solid state. So they form a three-dimensional structure of having positive ions and negative ions. You know, Na plus cations are smaller than the parent atom and anions are greater, bigger than the parent atom. So here, what is the case of NaCl? Na plus will be smaller and Cl minus will be greater. So these two Na plus and Cl minus will be arranged all along in a three-dimensional lattice or in a cubical form, in which this lattice depends mainly on the size of the atom. Okay, this crystal lattice is mainly depends on the size of the atom, the packing structure or the packing arrangement of this positive and negative ions in the atom, all these depends. Okay, so that we will see later. So hence a three-dimensional structure will be formed, a crystal lattice will be formed, and very importantly, the lattice structure is very, very stable. We always say that Na plus, you cannot see a NaC plus, just an NaCl plus. It only forms an aggregate of, or all the ionic compounds for that matter, we will see as an aggregate of molecules of Na plus and Cl minus. Actually, you know, there is no what, the bonds are hypothetical, so the force of attraction is there. So always there are what? Repulsive force and attractive force in a cubical lattice. If I draw that, you have in your textbook that diagram, please go through the diagram. I will just try to draw it. That is, if we have a crystal lattice of NaCl, you will see what happens. See, here in the corner there is a bigger Cl minus. Okay, Cl minus and Cl minus. Now what happens in the center of the Cl minus? Na plus should be attached to Cl minus should be attached to Na plus. So this will be, given another color, this will be small sodium ion, this will be small sodium ion, this will be small sodium ion. So how you go for a three-dimensional structure means, see, three-dimensional structure means like this, it will come like this, it will come like this and like this. It is one side. Then again what happens? Like this, like this, like this and like this. See? So all cases, in all these, again one more, that is like this, here, then here, then here and here. So when you just see and just examine, just go through the diagram in the textbook, it is clearly written, that is one chlorine, then what will happen? Then the sodium will come. Again chlorine, sodium, again chlorine, sodium, again chlorine, then here is a sodium. See, in all the cases, here it is chlorine, here it is sodium. Isn't it? Then here it is again what? Chlorine, here it is sodium. Here it is chlorine, here it is sodium. Here it is chlorine, here it is sodium. So this is a three-dimensional lattice structure. You can say it as a crystal lattice. So this is the pattern. I said the packing arrangement of these ions in a crystal lattice which is stable in nature. Now you are thinking how these ions are formed in a crystal lattice which is very, very stable. You know, there is, in order to form this lattice structure, some energy must be needed, isn't it? See, you have sodium ions and chloride, lot of sodium ions and chloride ions are there. Now if they want to compare and get seated in a cubical arrangement, or this is not directly a bond, this is only force of attraction, which is very, very great. So in order to have that type of an arrangement in which there is a solid packing efficiency for that, or it won't come out just like that, some amount of energy will be released by attaining this structure. That's what I said. This crystal structure is stable in nature. nature. Stability means what? Less energy. So when normal gas combines, the sodium ion, chloride ion combines, there are many, there are so many factors in this combination. It must be gone through the repulsive force of Cl minus and Cl minus. It must be go through the repulsive force of Na plus and Na plus. There are so many Na plus and Cl minus. And at the same time, there are cases where attractive forces is there. So, in order to have this type of an arrangement of a crystal lattice, there is an energy which is called as lattice energy. A new word, a new term, that is lattice energy. So, lattice energy is nothing but the energy released, or it can be given. I will tell you in detail next thing. Or the lattice energy, in this case, this energy when it is released, when this sodium chloride forms a three-dimensional crystal lattice, that released amount of energy, delta H is minus, that exothermic released energy is called as the lattice energy. Okay, so now tell me, what are the factors that depends on the formation of an electrovalent bond? Is it only the ionization potential and the electron gain enthalpy? No. Then it is also plus lattice energy. So, what I mean is, you have to take lattice energy also in consideration while you talk about ionic bond or an electrovalent bond. Got it? So, now we will consider all the three values. You know, ionization potential. What is IP? IP is always endothermic, isn't it? So, if I say IP is always endothermic plus. Now, if I want to give a value for sodium chloride, I will give the value of IP as 495. Say, example, in the textbook it is given. Now, what is electron gain enthalpy? EGE. That is, in this case, it is having a negative value. As I told you, it can be both positive and negative, but experimentally proven that this, in the formation of an NaCl, the electron gain enthalpy is negative. So, it is having a negative value of, it comes to be 348. It's on kilojoule per mole, correct? Kilojoule per mole. Okay. So, this is the case. Now, if you take the difference, it will be 147 kilojoule per mole. It is positive. See, I will tell you, this is positive. Now, in any reaction for that matter, if the delta H, we will see more in thermodynamics. All these comes under thermodynamics. So, we will see in detail there. But now you just understand that. If a reaction or some formation of chemical bond or a reaction has to happen, the delta H or the energy must be released, then only that will be a stable reaction. Listen, stable reaction or a stable bond formation. But now what happens here? It is a plus 147 kilojoule per mole. So if you consider only these two, this cannot happen. This lattice will not happen. Now we are considering the lattice energy also. That means the energy which is released by this NaCl crystal lattice, it comes to be around, see, the lattice energy of this NaCl, the formation of this NaCl molecule, the energy is liberated because bond is forming. So, whenever a bond is formed, the energy is released. Whenever a bond is formed, energy is released. Whenever a bond is broken, energy should be given. That is the funda. Okay. So, lattice energy was found to be, see, 788 kilojoule per mole. See? So, again the difference is what? Plus 147 and minus 788. The difference will be negative. So, that is why the delta H value is negative. So, that is why this is a stable molecule or the crystal lattice, which depends on the packing arrangement and the crystal structure. You will come along with so many crystal structures are there. Okay, hexagonal, then cubic pack structures, then monoclinic structure, tetrahedral structure, octahedral structure. So many crystal structures are there in this lattice. That is, you call it as Brevis lattice. There are 14 Brevis lattice there, in which we have seen so many dimensions you can see. Okay, so that we will see later in the next. So here, so the altogether sum is what? Altogether sum is comes to be negative, which means that this is a stable arrangement. See? So, we have to consider the lattice energy also when you are considering the the electrovalent bond. So, along with the octet theory, when you talk about octet theory, ionization potential and electron gain enthalpy will comes under that causal approach, isn't it? That is, it is gaining energy and losing energy to make what? Octet. Definitely yes, but not only the octet theory is valid, but also you have to take into consideration of what? The lattice enthalpy. Enthalpy means energy, lattice energy. Okay, so this is how an ionic bond is formed. So hope you are very clear with this, because you already know only the lattice energy was the new term. Now you know that. Okay, so having set this lattice energy, now we must define what is lattice energy. Okay, so now we will know, or we can define a lattice energy. Actually, if definition says as the lattice energy is the energy needed. See, you can. This is okay, right? Okay. So we can say, or we can define the lattice energy. By the definition, it goes as the amount of energy needed to break 1 mole of a solid compound into its constituent gaseous atom at an infinite distance. That is a correct definition for a lattice energy. So we will have an example. That means 1 mole of a solid compound, for example 1 mole of sodium chloride, you know that 1 mole of a sodium chloride must be broken down into, the constituent sodium ion and chlorine ion in its gaseous form. Very, very important. In its gaseous form, not in the solid form, but it should be in the gaseous form. How much amount of energy is required to break this NaCl solid compound? If it is 1 mole, you will get 1 mole of Na and 1 mole of Cl minus, isn't it? Mole constant. So, 1 mole of a solid compound, how much energy is needed to break that 1 mole of a solid compound into its constituent ions in gaseous state? That is called as lattice enthalpy. So, remember, we have set the formation of lattice of NaCl. How much amount of energy is released? 788 amount minus 788 kilojoules per mole is released. Okay, then if 1 mole of NaCl should be broken, okay, the one mole of NaCl is broken, then the enthalpy will be plus 788 kilojoule per mole. Because why? In the last case, it was the release of energy when a lattice is formed. Here, what happens? The lattice is breaking. So, for making and breaking, you use the same word as lattice energy, but in the value, the plus and minus will change. That means, in breaking up of a bond, you know energy is needed. So, the value will be plus. In the reverse case, the formation of an NaCl bond, energy is released. So, that should be minus 788 kilojoule per mole. So, now you know the difference between that. That is, if NaCl is, okay, you can always have a definition like this. 1 mole of Na and 1 mole of chlorine in gaseous state combined to form a 1 mole of NaCl in solid state. How much energy is released? That is called as lattice energy. Then it will be what? It will be minus 788 kilojoule per mole. Either way you can say, no problem. Okay, but generally the definition goes like, when 1 mole of a solid compound is broken down into its constituent ions in gaseous state, the amount of energy required, because it's an endothermic reaction, delta H is positive. So that amount of energy is called as into an infinite distance. into an infinite distance, because charges are there, no, you get attracted. So in order to get an infinite distance, that energy is called as lattice energy. Now you get an idea of what is lattice energy and how the plus and minus changes. Okay, while breaking, plus charge, forming, minus charge. Now, one difficulty is that you cannot calculate the lattice energy directly. You cannot have the amount, how much amount, that is this 788, you cannot calculate directly from this thing. Okay, you can't get it. Why? Because, you know, while making of Na plus and Cl minus, you know there are repulsion force as well as the attractive force. Repulsive force is what? Na plus and Na plus or Cl minus and Cl minus. Attractive force means Na plus and Cl minus. Now whenever a bond is there, you know that the attractive force must be greater than the repulsive. That you will study in the next theory, DB theory. Okay. So what happens is, not only this factor is related to this lattice theory, also the crystal structure, the parameters related to crystal structure is also in the case of lattice energy. So lattice energy can be found out indirectly. That also you will study in the thermodynamics by Hess's law. Not in the Hess's law, but in the Haber cycle. Haber cycle, you will calculate the lattice energy of NaCl. How you got this 788 kilojoule per mole. That's why thermodynamics is a very, very important chapter. Like this chemical bonding and molecular structure. Very important. There we deal with the enthalpy changes. How a molecule is formed. What is the criteria for getting a molecule? Is it spontaneous? Is the reaction is happening in its own? Or some amount of energy is required? Or a catalyst is required? How much energy is there? What is the bond? Etc. etc. We will deal with that. Okay. So here, this is the concept of lattice energy. Hope it is clear with you. Okay. So, you know lattice energy cannot be calculated directly. So, these are about the ionic bond or the covalent. Now, we will see some simple parameters. Bond, we are talking about ionic bond or electrovalent bond. So, now we will see some of the bond parameters like bond length, then bond angle, then bond enthalpy, and the last one is bond order. Okay, so we will say one by one. It is very easy, you know. Okay, we will start by one. That is the bond parameters. First is what? Bond length. You know what is bond length, isn't it? Everybody knows. If there is a bond, what is the length of that bond? Now, if you want to give a definition for bond length, we will say the equilibrium distance between the center of the two atoms in a bonded atom, isn't it? See, by an example I will tell you. You have an HCl molecule or whatever be the molecule. This is HCl. The chlorine atom is greater. Okay. If I say like this, if it's a bonded atom, very important. You have studied this in covalent radius and a metallic radius in the last chapter, I think so. Okay, so here is a bonded molecule. And what is this? This is the bond length. That is the equilibrium distance between the two bonded atoms. The nuclear distance, nucleus to nucleus, what is the distance between the two, internuclear distance to be exact. The equilibrium internuclear distance between the two bonded atoms is called as what? Bond length. Isn't it? Now, what is the radius? If it is a covalent molecule, you know covalent molecule is Cl. Covalent molecule. What will be this? What will be from this to this, center to this? What is this? What is this? This is the covalent radius. Isn't it? This is the covalent radius of this atom, hydrogen, or if we say A. And what is this? What is this? This is the covalent radius of the atom B. Isn't it? You know what is covalent radius? Covalent radius means half the distance of the covalently bonded atom. Isn't it? Half the distance. So this is the covalent radius. Now, while we talk about bond length, now what will be the bond length? Bond length will be, what is it? A plus B. That is why we say the internuclear distance between two bonded atoms. For example, HCl. This is H and this is Cl. The distance internuclear, nucleus to nucleus, that is inter. Different atoms inter. So nucleus to nucleus, how much is the length of that? That is called as the bond length. Clear? Now, a new term which is called as van der Waals radius. Now, what is van der Waals radius, or how you will calculate the van der Waals radius? Now, van der Waals radius can be calculated in a non-bonded atom. What do you mean non-bonded atom? For example, this is clear, right? Okay. Now, if you talk about van der Waals radius, see, van der Waals radius means it is the distance or the half the distance between the two non-bonded atoms, isolated two non-bonded atoms. That means it is between a molecule and a molecule, not in one molecule. See, here what we said, this is hydrogen and this is Cl. So it is a diatomic molecule, isn't it? That is in there. Now what happens in the van der Waals molecule? For example, if you consider chlorine. In the case of chlorine molecule, what is the van der Waals radius? Just your information, that's all. Your textbook also. Now we take what? We take the chlorine atom first. Sorry, a chlorine molecule. See, if this is a chlorine molecule, this is chlorine and chlorine. Okay, chlorine and chlorine. Chlorine and chlorine. This is what? This is the covalent radius. You know. Sorry, this is the covalent radius. Isn't it? Half the distance between the internuclear distance, that is covalent radius. Okay. Now, what is van der Waals radius? See, in this chlorine atom, if you want to calculate the van der Waals radius, you have to show the valence electrons, or the valence shell also. That means whole atom, the whole isolated, atom, no, it is the whole isolated molecule you have to show. And one more molecule you have to show. See, one more molecule you have to show. Then the distance between these two, see, from this and this, the half the distance between this is called as the van der Waals radius. It is called as the van der Waals radius. Okay, so now we know the difference between covalent radius and van der Waals radius. Covalent radius just the internuclear distance. Van der Waals radius means what? The isolated molecule, that means the valence shell is also taken, and the two adjacent isolated molecule when combined together. Why? Because always the van der Waals force of attraction happens, and it's a very weak force of attraction which can see in an isolated molecule. So that is how we calculate the van der Waals radius. So if you come this and if you take the center, half the center of this particular this will give you the van der Waals radius. Simple. You have to take that full valence shell, it's also the whole isolated atom. Or sorry, here is a molecule, two chlorine molecule. Covalent radius means inside this chlorine molecule, the internuclear distance half is the covalent radius. Now what is bond length? Bond length is A plus B, that is this distance or this distance. See, this distance or this distance, full distance, that is called as the bond length. Clear? Now you know the bond length depends on, for example, you know chlorine. If you say chlorine molecule or hydrogen molecule, you know there is only one bond, isn't it? One bond. Okay. Now if you take oxygen molecule, you know it is 2. Bond is 2. If you have nitrogen molecule, the bond is 3. Okay. Now what happens to this bond length here? Bond length. That means in hydrogen molecule there is only one bond. So bond length is having some value. But in the case of double bond, it is attracted or it is close to each other. So the bond length will get decreased. Again, if it is a triple bond, the bond length will again get decreased. So as the number of bond increases, the bond length decreases because of the strong force of attraction between the two atoms. Just keep in mind. Okay. So that is about the bond length. Now we will see what is bond angle. What is bond angle? What is bond angle? For example, if I take a molecule of water, this is water molecule. This water molecule contains two lone pairs of electrons and two bond pairs of electrons. Okay. Now the bond angle is the angle between this. See, the angle between this is orbital. We will study that. The angle between the orbitals of bonded electrons. You know, bonding happens like here and here. So that angle, for example, this is 104 degree, 104.5 degree. So the angle between these orbitals of this bonded electrons is called as bond angle around a central atom. What is central atom here? Oxygen. So the angle made by the orbitals of this bonded electrons or bonding electrons around a central atom or an ion is called as a bond angle. So the bond angle tell you what? Tell you, or it will give some idea of the orbitals, the number of bonding electrons in an orbital as well as the shape of the molecule. Very important. So the bond angle will give you an idea of the shape of the molecule. That's all. For example, in the case of, if you want one more example, if it is carbon atom in a tetrahedral shape, the bond angle of this carbon to hydrogen is 109.5 degree centigrade. So that is the bond angle. The angle made between the orbitals of the bonding electrons around a central ion or an atom. And it will give you an idea of the bonding electrons as well as the shape of the molecule. That is important. Shape of the molecule. Okay. Now next is bond order. What do you mean by bond order? This is very simple. That's why I just go through like that. Now what is bond order? What is bond order? Bond order is nothing but the number of bonds in a molecule. Simple. The number of bonds in a molecule. For example, hydrogen-hydrogen bond. What is a bond order? How many bonds are there? 1. So its bond order is 1. Correct. Okay. Now in the case of oxygen-oxygen molecule, what is the bond order? What is the bond order? The bond order is 2. Why? Because there are 2 bonds in the molecule. So it represents the number of bonds in a molecule. For example, nitrogen-nitrogen. What is the bond order? 3. That means 3 bonds are there. Okay. So from this you can say that. As the bond length decreases, how you know bond length decreases? That means this double bond, the bond length decrease, again decrease if it is a triple bond. So as the bond length decreases, as the bond order increases, that means as the number of bonds increases, the bond length decreases. Thereby, the bond dissociation enthalpy. What is bond dissociation enthalpy? That is the enthalpy or the energy required to dissociate a bond or cut out a bond. That increases. Why? Because if there is only one bond, you just cut it down. If there is a 2 bond, more energy is required to break the 2 bonds. And if it is 3 bond, again some more energies. So that is called as bond energy. So that is our next point. That is bond energy. Okay. Now we will see what is bond energy. So last thing. Okay. Now what is bond energy? Now what is bond energy? If you want to have a definition for bond energy is the amount of energy required to break a particular bond into its gaseous form. It is very, very important. Only in gaseous form this bond energy can be calculated. So it is nothing but I already told you, if you want to break a bond, you have to give energy, endothermic. So how much amount of energy is required to break a particular bond into its gaseous atom? That is very important. So that is called as bond energy. For example, hydrogen in the gaseous state forms 2 hydrogen. That means H plus H. See? H plus H. So in order to break this hydrogen molecule, see, in order to break this hydrogen molecule into two separate hydrogen atoms in a gaseous state, how much amount of energy is required? It is called as bond energy. Simple. Correct. Or if you can say O2 will give you O plus O. But remember, this must be in a gaseous state. So that is called as the bond energy. Okay. Or in the case of a covalent molecule also, or a polar molecule also, if you say for example HCl, H plus and Cl minus in the gaseous. So see how much amount of energy is used to break this to form H and Cl atom. That is called as bond energy. So this is how you say the bond energy. But when you talk about water, see, water, that means you know oxygen, hydrogen and hydrogen. The energy required for the breaking up of these two bonds is different. It is not the same. For example, if X kilojoule per mole is required for this OH bond to break, it is not like that for required for this. That is not X. It is something less than X. Which means, see, in the case of H2, what happens is, first it will form H and OH. See, first it will form H and OH. Then again this OH will form what? H plus O. So there are two steps in this. So if there are two steps, the bond energy you have to calculate is average bond energy. That means what is the H of this and what is the H of this. This plus this divided by 2 will give you the average bond energy. That means in the case if it is 3 steps, divide by 3. So it goes on like that. So we call it as average bond energy. Okay, so hope you understood. So bond energy is the energy required to break a particular bond into its gaseous state is called as bond energy. So greater the number of bonds, the bond energy will be greater. So hope you understood. So please go to the textbook, prepare your own notes. Any doubt, just call me. That's it. Thank you.